let's delve into a little bit about the best practices and the criteria and stuff for quests. So why do people do quests?
Why do people do quests? Why does one undertake a quest?
Or why are they important?
Sure. I think we undertake a quest because adventure matters and story matters. And once our basic needs are met, and probably everybody who's here tonight or anybody who's watching this later, like their basic needs are met. I think we long for something more. And I think many of us have a little bit of discontent in our lives, a little bit of kind of unsettlement and a little bit of like, okay, I have this yearning to do something with my life. And that's the nature of a quest. I mean, so from the beginning of recorded history, like heroes were going on quests to recover something or to reclaim something, or to capture something or to avenge some wrong or something. And I really kind of came to believe through this quest that I went on, as well as talking with all of these great people who had also pursued quests, I really came to believe that a quest can bring meaning to one's life. It's not your whole life, but it can bring some meaning, And for me, when I had this whole project of 10 years, I was doing other stuff at the time. It wasn't all I did, but it was super important because it provided this foundation. It provided this structure. It was like I have this parameter of every year, I'm going to do a lot of different projects, work on different things, but I still have this goal in front of me, and I always know what to do next. And so for me, there was a lot of value in knowing what to do next. And I think that's a part of the quest as well. A quest is always about this long journey and like lots of steps and milestones, and things will happen along the way, but you have this goal, you have this destination that you're working toward. And at least for me, like I was always like a very logical kind of thinker, analytical kind of thinker. I really, really related to the idea of like there's a countdown and there's like the 193 countries and I'm like, making progress and I'm at 100 and I'm at 150 and there are these challenges, et cetera, but I'm working towards something that matters to me.
Yeah, and you sort of make the distinction between a hobby and a quest too, right? It's not just like, oh, I want to play golf all the time. It's like, you have a specific goal for the courses that you want to play or something like that. Can you talk a little bit about the distinction?
Sure, so a hobby, like all of us have hobbies, we have things that we love to do. A hobby is like you like to play golf. That's great, Maybe you want to improve your game or something. So then you start like taking courses or lessons and then that becomes more of a passion, or it's like you're devoting time and money and energy toward it. A quest is more like, okay, I want to like play every golf course in Scotland, like the top 100 courses in North America or something like that. So a quest has parameters. A quest, has specific matrix or some kind of measurable objective to it. It has that goal or destination. So for me, I just began out of a love of travel, but it wasn't just like I want to go to a bunch of countries. Like after I kind of latched onto this idea of like, oh, I'm going to go to like 100, and then I'm going to go to like all of them. That's where I felt so much more purpose and meaning, because it was like I'm actually working towards something. I didn't have to explain to people like why I was going to these random countries, anymore. I'm like, because it's part of the goal, it's part of the quest, and maybe it doesn't make sense to everybody, but that's okay. It doesn't have to. So another lesson is like, you have to believe in your dream even if no one else does. But once you have that quest, once it goes from hobby to passion to quest, then if it's something you really believe in, it's hard to let go of it.
So, and you have specific criteria for quests, and we've touched on some of them, and another one is a challenge. It has to be a specific type of challenge. Can you round out the picture of the criteria for a quest? Sure.
I mean, so a quest has a beginning and an end. It has lots of milestones and stages and levels and things. I've been on this book tour and I've been talking about video games a little bit. I don't know how many people here tonight played video games. I've been talking a lot about Super Mario Brothers, right? This classic game, which I actually used to play with my grandma. Speaking of her again. So in that game, or like most games, like there are all kinds of things to distract you, and there are all kinds of things you have to work through, and it can't be that easy. Right? If you're familiar with the game, there's 8 worlds that you have to go through. And you can't just like rescue the princess, which is the object of the game. You can't just do that on the first world. Like that would be really boring, right? So we want to actually try and fail and then try and fail. And so challenge is the essence of adventure, essentially. And so challenge is the essence of a quest. So there's a challenge, things that happen along the way. There are usually other actors, like people who come along to help or to hinder. And usually there has to be an act of transformation in a true quest. Usually it's like there's something that's unexpected. Like you're just going along with this kind of thing, but then all of a sudden maybe there's something else that happens.
What if it's a little too out of reach, or what if you don't end up achieving it?
What if it's too out of reach, or what if you don't end up achieving it? So those are two different questions.
Okay.
I think if it's out of reach, I think it's really important that a quest or an adventure be something that is really difficult but also obtainable. So it has to be somewhat feasible, right? So my goal wasn't to visit every planet, in the solar system. Like someone else, please feel free. I could conceive of it. Like it was like once I started thinking about it, I was like, this is really tough, but I might actually be able to. Like I had to be able to believe in it, even if you have like a 1% belief or something. It can't be something that's totally impossible or totally out of reach, I think. But the second part was, what if you just get tired of it or something, or what if you don't achieve it? Yeah, I don't know.
Is there still value in doing it, even if you don't end up like reaching that goal?
Is there still value? Absolutely. And I think I knew, at least in my experience of taking on the quest, that there was a real possibility of failure. And I think that would have been disappointing. But there certainly was still value in doing it, hopefully. I mean, ultimately it is about the process much more than the destination. I think, for me, I wrote a lot about regret in the book. And for me, what I wouldn't have been able to deal with would be this idea that I had this concept and like I thought about it and I really thought it through and I was like, yes, I actually think I could go to every country in the world, but I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it because it's just too much, or like, I don't know, I'll do some other stuff, I'll keep traveling. So I guess for me it was like, if I failed along the way, that'd be one thing, but that would be from something external. I wasn't going to allow like a decision not to do it to be the failure. So I think there's still value, absolutely.
Okay. And is this something that everyone should do?
Should everyone have a quest?
Yeah. Or are there some people that aren't just right for quests?
So I tried to make a distinction in the book about quest and adventure. A quest is the specific thing that we've been discussing, and it has these parameters, et cetera. I don't necessarily think everyone should have a quest. I'm not in the business of telling people what they should do with their lives. I don't like that. I'm in the business of of sharing by example and telling stories and looking at what other people have done to find value in their lives and extracting the lessons from that. But I would say, like if I was going to say something prescriptive, I would say that everyone should, we'll use that word, everyone should find a way to cultivate the value of adventure. Everyone should find a way to embrace adventure in their lives. And what that looks like will be different for you, for me, for everyone here. But I do believe that adventure makes our lives better. And adventure and challenge will enrich us because we do have that discontent. If we really focus on what matters, I think most of us want to strive for something. And it's in striving, it's in embracing adventure that our lives are made better, I think.
What are some of your favorite examples? My
favorite examples of quest. So I talk to people that I kind of put them in two categories, right? I put them in this like one category, which is like the oh my God category, all right? And the oh my God category is like people just doing like totally ridiculous things, okay? So there was this guy, his name was Mad Dog. That wasn't his actual name, but people called him Mad Dog. And it was an appropriate nickname because he ran 250 marathons in a single year. Okay, so that was kind of like an oh my God thing. I'm like, wow, like ridiculous. Like, how do you do that? And and there were people who walked across America. There was a guy who walked across Turkey. This young woman who's actually a teenager who sailed around the world in a small sailboat. She was the youngest person to ever do this. So I had lots of stories like that, and those were really interesting because they are the oh my God stories, and I wanted to learn from them. But I guess in some ways I was just as interested in the stories of people, just ordinary people who did something really interesting or remarkable, or who found a way to embrace adventure, as I mentioned. So there's a woman in Omaha who's knitting 10,000 hats. And she was a knitter, and she just really liked to make hats. So one year she made 100 hats for her friends and family, and she really liked that, but she wanted more of a challenge. So she thought about going up to 1,000, but then she was like, just like with every country, she was like, no, a real challenge would be 10,000. So she's making 10,000 hats, and you can go online and request one. There's a whole charity component to this, and she's sharing the stories of where all the hats are going. So I like things like that almost as much as I like the really kind of audacious kind of things, because I'm really interested in seeing how people can apply it.
That's awesome, yeah. And there's a lot of people, so there's some people that are kind of just doing this for themselves, for the challenge, and then there's some people that are doing it in order to give back in some way. Do you think, there's benefits of one over the other, or both are good?
I think both are good. I think, someone asked at one of the stops the other night, they were like, does my project like have to serve humanity? Well, I think most of us, want to serve humanity in some way or some other form, but I don't think there's anything wrong with a project that you do for yourself. I think it's okay to have a season of self-discovery. A lot of the travel that I did was for no one's benefit. It was just my own kind of thing, and I think that's all right. So I think maybe the point is like, if you have a crazy idea, if you have like this thing in your head, like you shouldn't ignore it. You should pay attention to that, and you never know where that's going to lead. Maybe it will lead to something greater later. Maybe it will lead to this great service idea later. But I'm not a big fan of like packaging service onto something. Like if there's a great fit, then that's perfect. But you don't have to be like, I've got this great idea, and let me have a 10% to charity thing to go with it just because I should.
Right.
That's what I think.
The same probably goes for monetizing too, not doing something for the purpose of monetizing it, but if it happens to kind of generate a book or something along the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with service, obviously, nothing wrong with monetization,
Yeah.
right? Either way.
What are some of the biggest excuses that you hear from people?
The biggest excuses? That's a great question. I don't know, I think people are kind of like focused on, I don't have time, I have this limitation, it costs a lot of money, or something. I'm a big fan of kind of dealing with objections and like, okay, if you don't want to do this now, that's fine. But maybe there's not really a great reason why. Maybe it's just not the right time for you, or you want to focus on something else. Excuses, yeah, I don't know. I think maybe people don't know what the next step is. Maybe they don't know, like, maybe they think I don't have a crazy idea, like I didn't want to walk across America, or I didn't want to go to every country in the world. But that's why I try to encourage people, like, okay, you don't want to do that. What do you like to do, right? What is your thing? Like, is there something that you're good at? Is there something that you've always thought about? It is helpful to ask people like open-ended questions. What would you do with your life if there were no time and money obstacles? Where have you found challenge in the past? Is there something that you'd like to do that you've never done before? I think those are good explorations.
So is there anything wrong with saying, okay, I really want to do this thing, but I have to wait 3 years until I get X, Y, and Z in place? Should you just do it right away?
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Okay.
I don't know. I actually waited like maybe 2 years before I like formally said I'm going to do this. I was still traveling during that time, but I was also doing a master's degree, and so I would do my schoolwork, and then I would like travel during the breaks, and I was like running a little business on the side, and I thought I wanted to do this project, but I wanted to make sure, because I didn't want to just start and like give up along the way or something. I also don't think there's anything wrong with giving up. I think it's okay to give up something you don't like, but for this case, for me, I wanted to be sure that I could stick it out. So I actually waited 2 years before it. So, but I guess I would say, like, the caveat is don't let that be your excuse, right? Like you said,
Yeah.
don't let that be your like reason. So for me, I was trying to be intentional about something.
Right. I guess one of the struggles for me is just thinking, if I'm going to potentially dedicate several years of my life to something, I want to make sure that it's like a really good thing, that it's
Of
the
course.
right thing. How do you know
Of
if it's like
course.
the right one?
How do you know? You experiment. You try different stuff. It's okay to try something and then modify it, right? These are not rules. Like you mentioned, like, are there characteristics for these things? There are characteristics, but they're not rules. And I think telling people to never give up or never modify their plan is really bad advice, because if you're doing something you no longer enjoy, why would you keep doing it? And in my case, I was like motivated, like I'm totally going to see this through, and there might be moments of hardship or something, but I believe in the outcome. And so as long as you believe in the outcome, you should keep going. But if you don't believe in the outcome and you don't have the motivation for it, then why not change it up? It's okay.